Welcome back to the channel, and today on this video I am working on a pair of Ferrari cylinder heads. Well, these ain't actually off a Ferrari, these are off a Lancia, but it is a Ferrari engine. It's the same engine as what's in the 308. And what we've got to do to these is put some valve guides in. We already have refaced them for our customer, and he took them away, started grinding the valves in, and noticed that there seemed to be a little bit of play between the valve stem and the valve guide. So he ran them back over to us to have a look at. I've ordered, that's a big bag of valve guides, what we've had ordered from Simon at Nevlock Engine Components. They took a bit of getting, to be honest, but he pulled through for us and got them sorted instantly. So we've had to wait a little bit of time to get them made, but top job there, Simon, thank you. And yeah, so basically the plate that it's got, which is too much, is that there. If I bring the camera a bit closer, tilt the camera down, so you can see the amount of play. That's quite excessive there, and some of them are really bad. Can't remember which one's that one. That one's really bad. That's an exhaust valve, and then the inlets are just as bad. So I spoke to Darren, my customer, and he said no, just replace them. It's he's doing a full engine rebuild on it. We've done some work on the bottom end for him, and he wants the heads right. So the first thing, put my camera back up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is tape up the head faces, because I've refaced them once and I don't really want to reface them again. So I'm just going to put a few layers of masking tape on it, which will protect it. And then I'm going to warm the heads up first actually, then tape the heads up. I'm going to set up my Carmack valve guide press to keep it nice and controlled, removing the guides out of the cylinder heads, and then measure everything up, fit the new guides, cut the seats, hone the guides to size first actually before I cut them, and just make sure that everything seals nicely for my customer. But yeah, there we go, nice set of Ferrari cylinder heads. What I'm doing now is setting up to remove these valve guides, and what I want to do is use one of these tools to push on the spring platform, so when I push the guide it's securing it and it can push against it, but this one for the machine doesn't allow the guide to fall in, and all the other ones I've got are too big for this. So because these are quite rare and worth quite a lot of money, I don't want to trash the heads. So what I'm doing is I'm just making one of these. So I've got some alley bar, I've bored a hole up the centre. This is the size of the spring seat. So what I'm going to do now is put this profile here on the other end, and then that should do the job. measure up to make sure it'll fit in the end of the tool. Needs a little bit more of it. there we go. Hopefully that will be enough of a tool. So I'm not too bothered about some of the marks on it because it's only for me to use, but hopefully that bore, let's try the guide. Hopefully the bore there, yeah, it's plenty big enough for the guide to fall through. And then that bit there is for locking into the machine, so let me show you how it works. So basically that part there is a little bit smaller than the spring seat base, so that will fit snug in there, nice and flat against the bottom of the spring seat base, and then when the head's over the other way, it will just allow the guide to push straight through instead of getting jammed up in any of the other ones. So, and what's good about it is now I've got that, I'll be able to use it on other things as well. It won't just be used for these Ferrari heads. There we go. Definitely a bit more of a neater job. In fact, it might be a bit big. I might have to, oh no it won't, because it's got to go up inside the spring platform. So I'll get this set up and then I'll show you it being... So I've run into a problem straight away on these heads, and basically the guide, the original guide that's in there is so soft that as soon as my press starts to try and force them out, it's just spreading the guide and making quite a mess of it. I'll show you one that I tried to do just here. And the problem with that is I could just use the machine and just force them through, but as the guide pushes out or spreads out, it will then broach the guide bore, which will then mean that we'll need to put a bigger OD guide in there, which is not what we want. So what I'm trying to do is I'm using a stepped drill, which is that there, and then I'm just boring the original guide down past into where it's actually in the cylinder head, because then I'm hoping that there's nothing, it can't push it out any further because we're actually in the guide, in the cylinder head. So I'm going to try this. And if that don't work, then I'm going to have to machine the guides out, which is a bit of a nightmare. Typical. We have a flat battery. Right, while the battery charges up, I'm going to see if these ones now push out, because I've done these inlets on this side, so I'll put it back on and just try these. So that's worked, that's the first one out. So I've got another 31 guides to machine like that and then press out. The other thing that I'm doing, actually, I thought I'd mention, is before I actually start to get them moving, I drown them in oil as well, so hopefully nothing can pick up and go down the guide bore. I mean, it's definitely worked on the first two because there's nothing's picked up on them, which is there. Hopefully it'll be fine on the rest. So all the valve guides are out on the first cylinder head, and what I'm going to do now is check the size of the new ones. So I don't know where I've put it. So I've got a 0 to 1 inch micrometer, and I'm going to measure the OD of the new guide, and then compare it to the OD of the old guide, which is there. And it's measuring to be 1/1000th of an inch bigger, so that's pretty much perfect, to be fair, because these was a good fit in there, so the extra thou will help as well. I'm going to measure this step as well, because the head is machined to accept this step, So I want to make sure that this one isn't too big, because if it is, then I'll have to measure the cylinder head, because I don't think it will accept it, and I'll have to machine the cylinder head on the mill. No, that's good. That's actually 5 thousandths smaller, so that's perfect really. We won't have any issues there. So what I'm going to do is, not that I don't trust these guides, but I'm going to measure every single one to make sure that the OD is correct. And then the other thing that I need to do is just check that the length is right, which it is. So we can just go ahead now and install these new guides. So what I'm going to do first is install the exhaust guide. So now the cylinder head is mounted on the machine the other way round, and what we're going to do is, with one of these collars that sits on the seat of the cylinder head, so I've basically set the stop up on the machine, so I've come up and sat that against the cylinder head. And now what I'm going to do is find one of these tools and one of my spacers, so I can push against, let me put this down, so as I fit the guide, I can push against this and not push against the top of the guide, because I don't want to risk destroying here at all. Not that I would, but I don't want to risk it anyway. So what I'm going to use is this mandrel here to push it in with, where that fits really good on the valve guide, but as you can see it will push at the top. So I'm going to make myself a little collar about 1 mil bigger than the gap from there to there, so it pushes on that step, not on the top of the guide. So I'm going to prep for that quick, and I'll show you these guides going in. So I've just turned up this little bit of aluminium, and there's nothing real trick about it. It's just a little bit of aluminium, and basically it allows me to push on the step and not on the top of the guide. So what I'm doing now is pressing the exhaust guides into the cylinder head. So I've set the angle up on the machine, and then I'm just putting the cylinder head on here. I've already done one of the cylinder heads, so I've preset the stops on the machine, but basically there's a stop down here for the lower ram. So once I get that up against the seat, I can just adjust that, and then every time I move along it will just get to where the seat is and then stay there. And then I've adjusted the pressure on the machine and also the stop on the machine. So I've placed all the exhaust guides into the cylinder head. I've put a tiny little bit of oil just to help the guide get compressed in there, or pressed in there okay. I've measured the bore of the cylinder head as well as the guide, so I know I've got the right interference fit. Then on my machine I've set the depth stop here, so this bottom ram comes up and sits against the seat and doesn't take it any further. And then the top ram is set. This is the little collar that I've made sitting on the step of the guide. So what I could do now is just bring this down, and then we lower the lower ram as well. And then with a pair of pin nose, just move that over to the next one. So that's the lower ram in place. Now bring down the top. And that's what is good about this machine. Once you've got it set up on one, the repeatability of it is really good. And that's it. I'll carry on getting these exhausts in, I'll get the inlets in, and then we're going to cut the seats. That's all 32 valve guides in. So what I've got to do now is hone to size and cut the seats. So we're getting there. Apart from cleaning now, this is the first head completely finished. All 16 seats are cut, all the guides are in. But what I'm going to do is just take the tape off them and bang it through the cleaner for half an hour just to get out all the swarf out of it and make it look a bit prettier. So that's both these Ferrari Lancia cylinder heads done. Like I said earlier, it's the same engine that's in a Ferrari 308, but it's actually in a Lancia 832 or 8.32. So the problem my customer had was the valve guides was worn. So Simon at Nevlock sorted us out with 40 new valve guides. I know there's only 32 in these cylinder heads, but we had to buy a minimum of 40. So, but you know, thanks to Simon at Nevlock for sorting that for us. And then I made the two special tools, one for removing them, removing the old guides, and then the other tool for fitting the new guides but not pressing on the top part of the guide, pressing on the shoulder of the guide to protect it. And then I've honed and reamed out the, well, reamed and then honed out the guide bore, although they was the right size anyway, but just to check that they're parallel inside and that there's no swelling in there or anything like that causing an issue further down the line. And then I've cut the seats, so I actually fitted a 3-angle seat cutter into the Mira to do that, but it's 1.5 mm seating angle, which has cleaned up the seat and not really put the other two angles on, although on that one there where that one was a little bit out, you can see the top angle just forming and the bottom angle just forming. That's that one done. They're a nice Colson Bro material as well. That's why they're like a bronzy or a goldy coloured bronze and not a yellow bronze. And that's the second head. I've just put them through the cleaner as well, just to wash off the swarf that I've created. But actually really happy with that finished job, and it's quite nice to work on something a bit different. So I'm just waiting now for my customer Darren to come and collect these, and I'm going to get on with another job. So I've just had this turn up, so I want to say a big thank you to Alan, who's made this. This is a new clock for my engine build room, but my mate Rob's here from Quintec Racing.
Oh, no.
What did you think, Rob, when you opened this box?
Well, that's your latest size measuring equipment.
He actually thought it was for measuring. Oh no. So massive thanks to Alan for that. That'll be on the wall in a minute.
Rob, you sure you don't want to borrow this to go and measure your axles?
You could do bump steer with it.